may or may not know, I'm in the middle of the screening process and just want to review 9 tips that you should not do or mistakes you should make if you are a first-time landlord. And these will keep you out of trouble. And I think we know that. I've made these mistakes before. Screening this time, I almost did some of these, but I'm glad I have not. The first one is not advertising when you do receive the notice. In Massachusetts, you should receive appropriate notice if you do have the correct lease or tenant at will agreement. It should be 30 days within a calendar month. So that just means if it's a tenancy at will agreement, that's once a month. If it is January 15th, they give a notice. That means their last month is going to be February, and they should move out February 28th or 29th of this year. During that time, those 6 weeks, you should be advertising for the property. If you're not doing that, you don't want to wait until they move out to advertise, because you'll likely have a full month of vacancy, which is quite costly if you don't have the funds allocated for that. So definitely want to advertise once they give the appropriate notice. Next is poor pictures or poor image quality. You don't want to have maybe 2 or 3 pictures of the entire unit. I've made that mistake. I've only had a couple. And I'm like, oh, this'll do. And I've even done just cell phone pictures, but if you have a camera, you can take much nicer pictures. I mean, the iPhone 11, you can still take pretty good pics for a cell phone. But again, you want to make sure you get the highlights of the property. You don't want to take just 1 or 2 random pictures that are sideways, that are not properly done, because it just shows you don't care about the property to the prospective tenants. And that's going to be an issue when you try to rent it if someone's just taking a look at the pictures really quickly and they don't like what you have to offer. So ideally, every time you want to have pictures that you can use. And if you do them when the unit's vacant, you can likely use them next time or next year or 2, 3, 4 years, whenever the property's vacant again. But you want to take good quality pictures, not really shady quality that's not going to help the sale of your unit. Next is not doing enough research on the market rent for your property. One mistake you can do that can cost you money for vacancy is starting the property price too high. The tools that I like to use are Craigslist is somewhat okay to give you an idea of what's active on the market. You just go to Zillow and type in your town and you type in just current properties for rent. You get another handle on the market. I've also used Rentometer, which is a good source, and that analyzes typically within a 2-mile radius. Based on the property, based on the beds, it gives you a pretty accurate number. And one tool I haven't used in a while is actually Cozy. Cozy has I believe it's $20. You get a rental. They tell you exactly where your rental is priced, and they give you comps. They give you what's close in the area that's recently comped out, what's recently rented, what's not rented, the highest rent, the lowest rent. I think it was a 4-page report. I'm not sure if they still offer that feature, but for $20, it was well worth it when I was pricing the unit. A next mistake is no minimum standards. This will save you a ton of absolute time when you are screening tenants. If you do have a property that's in a great location, you're likely to get a ton of tenants that want to take a look at the property. But again, we're trying to separate the lookers from the serious potential tenants. So the way to do that is to have minimum standards. And if you don't have minimum standards, you're going to be running around the apartment, just showing it and showing it and showing it, or running around the property, and you have to drive to the property. And it's just not efficient. Minimum standards you want to have is typically an income minimum standard times the monthly rent. I personally do 3 times the monthly rent. You could have a credit score minimum standard. You can let them know you're going to do a background credit check. If you no smokers, if you want to do that, you can have no pets. Just things that are in your control that if they don't meet this, then there's no point in seeing the apartment. Another thing is if you don't do any phone screening, you don't want to waste your time. And you can tell a lot by someone just getting them on the phone, asking them your set of pre-qual questions. It could be 5 or 10. Why are you moving? How long do you plan on renting the apartment? And then you gather information. And okay, you pass, take a look at the property, or not. Oh, I'm sorry, you don't meet the income standard, or you have pets, we don't allow pets at the property. Those are some things you can qualify for that will help you out instead of showing the property too much. But it will save you a ton of time if you have set minimum standards when you are looking to potential renters. Next is very similar, is just showing the property too much to unqualified applicants. And this can be done by having the minimum standards out there. If you have 10 people who click the link on Zillow, I would guesstimate maybe 6 or 7 of them are just kind of looky-loos. They're just looking and they're just not really serious about renting specifically from you, but they want to see, oh, I can click this button, or maybe it's a mistake. So out of those 3, maybe 1 or 2 you might show the property. And the way you want to do this is you want to stagger the showings. You want to show it during the daytime. It's going to show best, the lights on, things of that nature. At night, it doesn't show as well for most properties. But let's say you want to do either a Saturday or a Sunday. You want to stagger your showings every 15 minutes for an hour, 2 hours. Then, worst case scenario, you get through 4 people rather quickly, and I find it more efficient than doing a landlord open house or a property management open house. That is another option as well, is where you just hold the property open for 2 hours. But the one issue there is you're gonna have a lot of unqualified people come take a look at the property, and we don't even know if they have, the right minimum standards. We don't know if they have the right money. We don't know their situation, and we just don't know if they're serious buyers for the rental property. So it might not be the best scenario, but it does work for some folks. But personally, I don't like that idea. I would rather just have staggered people who are qualified come take a look at the property. Next is not having applications there for the viewings. It sounds very simple, but you want to make sure when you are showing the property that you have applications there. And you want to make sure your applications are thorough and not something that is a waste of time. To prevent that, you let them know you need a valid driver's license, or just a picture of the driver's license, and you need 2 pay stubs, and you're going to be doing references, you're going to be calling their landlord, and you're going to be calling their work for verification of employment. But again, a lot of people, if it's too much, if it's 2 pages or something like that, they don't want to fill that out if they're not serious. So it should be easy to read, but it also going to give you a lot of information, and you get to meet the tenants in person. Gives you a very good idea of who they are in the time you get to meet them, you get to chat, and you get to review. Make sure that they are thorough when filling it out. Stress that you're not going to accept anything that's not fully filled out. For example, landlord only has a first name. Is that the landlord, or is that a family friend, or were they not? See, that just draws red flags right there. Landlord first and last name, phone, boom, right there. That's going to give you a lot more information than a very person who fills their application out quickly. What does that kind of tell you? Kind of leaves you a little uneasy. They might not be the right fit, and if they're rushing through it, that's going to give you an indicator of why they're in a rush to move. That doesn't make much sense if you're in a rush to move. But if you're renting an apartment, with enough time, 4 weeks out, then they can give the proper notice to their landlord, and they can probably move, and you'll have little vacancy. Next mistake is not verifying the income, the references, or their jobs. I've done it in the past where I haven't done that. First, give a call to the landlord, and you also want to make sure that the landlord actually owns the building. You can do that in public records. So most of the time, that's pretty easy to figure out. Next, with their job, you want to make sure you call the actual company and not the person they list. The person they list is likely not the HR person you want to talk to. Some companies now, they do WeWork, and with that, it's kind of a pain because you got to wait a certain amount of time for them to release the information. But also on your application, you want to have a signature page at the bottom that says, we're going to be allowed to do a background credit. And I have, 6 sentences that's really thorough on what I'm going to do with the information. And you want to talk to their employer, you want to verify, you want to talk to the landlord and verify, and the pay stub should verify the income. This is your due diligence process, and you want to make sure you go through it, because the worst case scenario is you have a tenant that goes through the screening process, but again, if there's a red flag, this is where you want to find it. You don't want them to have the keys and control the property before anything bad happens. Next, let them know at the showings that if they pass the application process, there is a background credit check paid at their expense. And why do you want to do that? Well, since that is something that they're going to need if they're very serious in the apartment, you can have certain services do it. I've used Smart Move, and I thought it was brilliant. Background credit, eviction, very thorough report. They do give you what they call, I think, a SMART score or a tenant score at the end gives you an idea of their payment history. It verifies their social. There's a lot of stuff that credit report did that I liked. So I would use that, but let them know that's at their expense. And now the final one is number 9 here, where you have the tenant, they fill out the application full, you check their references, you check their job, they have W-2s, everything checks out, you have driver's license. Now it's time to say, hey, you passed, you want to move forward. And if they do, there's a few things you want to do to make sure you're checking your last few steps here. First is you want to let them know they're going to be transferring utilities in their name before move-in date. And you're only going to be accepting either a cashier's check or a money order for the move-in funds or the first last security payment. You will not accept a check under any circumstances. This might sound rather strict, but I'm dealing with the process now where he is adamant, he's coming from out of state, that he wants to pay me through a bank account or a personal check, and that just can't happen. There's too many risks involved with the money not being there, with the money not being transferred. And once you sign a lease and the tenant has the keys and you're waiting to see if the check doesn't bounce, although there's a slim chance, I would much rather be safe than sorry for this. So always collect the funds, either certified, you want it in certified, and if they're out of state, what I recommended is you can let them know to mail me a check to this address and send it priority mail and send me the tracking number, and I'll receive it in probably 1 to 2 days, and this will clear up everything. We'll just delay the move-in time. So make sure that you only collect funds, never by check, because that could bounce. Don't do any bank account transfers, anything like that. Personally, it takes too long to assure the money's gonna get in your account. I know it sounds hyper preventative and just crazy, but I would only collect them just with either a cashier's check or a money order. That's it. So with these 9 tips or 9 mistakes that you can make, you want to make sure this is probably the most important decision when you are screening is the tenant you have in. It can either make or break your investment. Evictions are way too costly, and that's something I want everyone to be able to avoid. If you follow these tips, your screening process, your due diligence, you're doing your homework, you should have, hopefully, applicants that are all passing. You have multiple applicants, and you can fill your properties quickly, which is the goal. So hopefully this was helpful. You can kind of see exactly my thought process when screening, what I learned, and you can take some of this and you can screen your next tenant, move forward rather quickly, and make sure your property's rented on time.